There's this Korean drama available on Netflix called When Life Gives You Tangerines. It has nothing to do with Go, but I've been watching it with my fiance, and I saw Go in the show. I was surprised. It was like it's the same thing that happened when I was watching Pokemon and I saw Go. I just never know when to expect it. Of course, it's a Korean show, so I should expect it a little more than, other shows, but it's like I don't know, it's about it's like kind of a coming of age tale, and I just didn't expect it to be there. But there were a couple of old men playing Go, and it was kind of tangential, but there were multiple scenes where the Go board was displayed, and I really appreciated it, and I got really excited, even though it's just Go on a show. I don't know, I just get really happy when there's any reference or image of Go on any show at all, especially when I don't know about it yet. So When Life Gives You Tangerines, it's I would say it's very, very well made as a show. If you're looking to watch that kind of show, it's not typically the show that I watch. It's good though. It's really well made. If you like Korean dramas, then I would say it's probably one of the better ones. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. And before we get on to the episode, I have a quick announcement to make. Episode 94 will be the last episode of the season, and then I'll be gone for like 8 weeks. And you guys can catch up on any episodes that you have missed, or you can listen to the other awesome Go podcasts that are running, or just play some Go while I'm gone. But episode 94, so this is the third to last episode of season 2, and then I'll obviously make the announcement a couple more times as the finale approaches, and then 8 weeks to give myself a break, especially because I'm going to be getting married in those 8 weeks and going on a honeymoon. So congratulations to us, I guess. But just wanted to let you guys know. In other news, I ranked up. I have reached Fox 2 Dan for the first time in my life. This is a huge milestone, actually bigger than I thought it was. I've never gotten to Fox 2 Dan, but I what I do is I play these games, and whenever I win, or lose, to be frank, I do look at the history of the player that I played against, so I can see what their rank history looks like. And when I see people who have been to 2 or 3 Dan and they've dropped down for a second, I take that as an accomplishment of like, oh, I've beaten an X2 Dan or an X3 Dan. I take that as an achievement. And so like I know I've never been to 2 Dan, but I didn't know how long I had been stuck at this rank. Because what I did was I looked at my history of Fox games, and if you scroll, so it looks like if you go onto the game history of Fox, if you scroll, you will kind of get cut off pretty quickly, and you might think that the history is not very long. But if you scroll, you just need to give it a moment, and then it'll load more games, and you can keep scrolling. And I actually went all the way back down to when I was a 7Q in Fox. I believe I created my Fox account as a 7Q, and if that belief is correct, that was in July of 2022 when I was a 7Q. And then, so what I did was I looked at every moment or every game that resulted in a rank up or down, and I counted the number of games at each section. Okay, so from 7Q, it took 39 games to get to 6Q, and that was in August of 2022. And then it took 16 games to get to 4Q, so I double ranked up, and that was in September of 2022. And then I dropped down to 5Q in 17 games, still in September. And then I ranked back up to 4Q in 7 games. I don't even know how that's possible. I thought you had to play bigger minimum amount of games. I may have miscalculated or there's something I don't know, but that was in October. And then in November, I ranked up to 3Q in 25 games. And then the next year in 2023, in January, is when I got to 2Q, and that took 37 games, so it took a little longer. And then I got to 1Q in 35 games in the February of 2023. And then my big milestone event, reaching 1 Dan in 17 games in March of 2023. And I remember that was a huge moment for me as well. Then I ranked down to 1Q in 18 games, and then ranked back up to 1 Dan in 18 games, and went back down to to 1Q in 21 games, and back up to 1 Dan in 19 games. And then finally, in this last stretch, 65 games. And this 65 game stretch spans almost 2 years. So I wasn't playing a whole lot, but I mean, man, 2 years at 1 Dan, and then I hit 2 Dan all of a sudden. And it's not even like the 2 years at 1 Dan included the whole wavering between 1 Dan and 1Q that I mentioned. That was, so when I reached 1Q, that was February of 2023. So it's been over 2 years since I hit 1 Dan. So that's why it's so significant. I've been at this for a while. And I guess I want to give you guys a little reflection on how I got here. Hopefully there's something helpful in here, but to be unhelpful to start, I really don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got to this strength, and this is the conundrum that I always face. I don't know how I got stronger. All I know is that I got stronger, and I have been trying many things, so it's hard to pinpoint on one thing. And if you've looked at, I've listened to, I forget what episode it was. A while back, I was talking about comprehensive approach to improvement rather than trying to find a secret sauce. And I think that's still kind of in play here. But basically, I don't know how I got here. The ultimate struggle has always been for me is the fear of playing too many games without learning. But on the other side, there is trying to learn too much without playing any games, which I think is the side that I fall on. So there's two problems, right? One is playing too much without thinking, and then the other one is thinking too much without playing, or thinking you can replace with learning, studying, reading, whatever. And so evaluate yourself whether you think you are on the side who is tending to play too much without analyzing, reviewing, and learning new things, or are you on the side who likes to analyze and learn and study too much, but doesn't play enough games to apply that? And I think I've been searching for the answer for a long time to really decide, hey, is it better to study, play a few games, study, play a few games, or is it better to just brute force your way through a whole bunch of games? And the answer right now that I've come to is it's neither of those, and you do have to just find the balance between the two. It's a little bit of a boring answer, maybe a cop-out, but I think I've been misguided a little bit in trying to figure out this black and white answer from the past. In reality, I'm usually the one who doesn't play enough, and I found my greatest improvement when I've forced myself to play more games. I think that my studying efforts definitely planted some seeds, and I've sowed what I've reaped what I've sowed. But I can only do that if I actually go out and play games. And this past stretch of games is like a recent effort. If you've been following, you know that lately I've been trying to play more games ever since I think back when I made the study plan workshop episode is when I really started to try to play more consistently, at least one every week. And look what it got me. Like, I got to 2 done in just a couple months. And I think that's not insignificant. So you may be lacking one or the other, right? If you've been playing so much and you haven't been getting anywhere, maybe it's time to go back and think about it. One thing that I did do is I looked at my history of games and I kind of cherry-picked a few during the time when I was struggling between 1 Dawn and 1 Q, and looking at the beginning of the plateau and kind of moving along at a cursory glance how my game was throughout the plateau every time I kind of ranked up and ranked down. And I've learned a few things from my casual look at the games that I've been playing and noticed a few things about the way I played. And it's very much to do with intuition. And maybe that's because of the nature of Fox games, is that I've been playing faster games. You kind of have to make your decision within the minute or even less, right? Within 30 seconds if you're in the Byoyomi. That's pretty much the average amount of time you get per move. And so by that nature of game, the kind of skill that you're going to be trying to improve while playing these games is primarily intuitive, because you can't read very complex sequences in 30 seconds. You can read quick sequences, but overall, what's really, really improving, and this has been said by many before, in a fast game, you're improving your intuition, but only if you are trying to improve your intuition and if you've been applying analysis and thinking and reviewing. But what I've specifically noticed about intuition by looking at my past games, I noticed shapes that I played back then that I would not play today because I know they're defective. And I think I even knew it back then. When I played those shapes, I even had a sinking feeling, like this feeling that this shape, it could have some issues, but I don't know why. And I would play them, and they would lead to issues. And over time, I learned to trust my instinct and intuition telling me that these shapes are bad and they're going to lead to problems. Except now I have experience under my belt. I actually have seen how it goes wrong, and so I can make a better judgment about shape. And I saw shapes that I don't play anymore, and I'm like, okay, that's not something I would play. Maybe it's possible, I don't know. And that's the thing about a lot of these moves, and I found myself saying this a lot when I reviewed my own games. The phrase that would come up is, I wouldn't play that, or I wouldn't have played that. That's not something I would have played. Instead of, that's a bad move, that's not a good move, that's a mistake. And I think if you've ever reviewed a game with the stronger player, you will notice a lot of the times, many of the strong players will phrase their things like that. They will be like, oh, I wouldn't play that. This is not really my style even. They even say something like that. It's like, why do you care about your style? If it's not a universal thing, why are you even commenting on it? It's because Go is so intuition and feeling based that sometimes you just have to give that caveat and say, like, look, the reason I am strong is because I followed a certain feeling and method, and I'm saying that this goes against that. This kind of rubs me the wrong way, and that's the best I can give you right now, because I may be wrong, this may work, and this may work in some other way, some other paradigm that you have. But overall, that's how we get stronger. We build our guts. We build our guts and intuition and our sense of like what is right and what is wrong. And I've noticed in shape, yeah, I played some shapes this is like one of the more objective things, right? Like shape is like clearly there's an answer of like, oh, this shape has defects or not. But it does still take practice and experience to learn. The other thing I've noticed, the intuition that I've built over the plateau, is my danger sense. I feel like looking at my past games, I am slower to realize when something's in danger. And this is something that I feel like is just always going to be a thing, because it's almost like when you first get your feet wet in 19 by 19, like if you review any beginner game, you'll notice that they have no sense of danger. They will let their stones just kind of sit there, get surrounded, super, super pressured on all sides without escaping. And then when they finally get in contact with the opponent, then they'll be like, oh, okay, let me escape now. When it's way too late and they start getting chased around the board, and then it leads to disaster. But me, as an SDK, I still have that intuition that I'm building. I mean, it gets a lot more specific as you get stronger, because it starts to play into your life and death knowledge, your Tsuji knowledge, and things like, there are many things that you need to be aware of. And I just, on a cursory glance, without reading much, I just noticed that my danger sense was not very good. I saw a group that I was just like leaving to be, and I can see why I did, because it doesn't look quite like it would be a problem. But I think I've definitely gotten a more generous outlook with my groups, like in terms of like giving them the best chance at life that they can get. I feel like I want to be a little bit of a tiger mom for my groups. Like, hey, you need to study, you need to do your homework, you need to go to piano class, you need to go to swimming, you need to eat good food and go to sleep. Right? I'm trying to give all the health that I can to my groups. Whereas before, maybe I was kind of just like, oh, you look fine, you look okay, you don't look like you're dying, so I'm just gonna let you be. And of course, you can go too far with that, right? If you play way too safe and conservative, you're also not going to have fun. But I think the thing is, for me, my weakness is leaving weak groups, because I'm greedy and I like to try to take big points, and I'd like to try to expand and play quickly. And that's kind of how my instincts tell me to play. And so reeling that back is key to me. Whereas other people, it may be a different thing. Other people might play too safe and they need to really expand their horizons and try to throw stones off into the horizon and see what it can do. Another intuition point that is kind of similar to the danger one is life and death. I noticed a certain life and death situation that I was handling, and I didn't read it. I didn't read the life and death problem. I didn't know the answer right away. But the move that I played, without reading it, I knew that was not the living move, that would lead to my own death, and it did. And looking at that, I was like, I think I know this now because I played a game like this back then. Because I've realized that that's not how you live, and now that I am looking at it with hindsight, I would consider other moves to live. But what it did was it built my life and death intuition. When we talk about studying life and death, a lot of times we're really studying reading, we're studying learning life and death shapes and strategies on how to kill. But another side to this is really just looking at a life and death situation and having a good instinct about where the key points are. And that's like almost like I think there are many levels of knowledge in life and death. There are some life and death situations that you will know because you just know for sure. For example, if you have any experience in Go, you probably know that if you have a three-space, a group with three spaces in it in a row, you know exactly where the life and death point is, where you put in the middle, you can either kill or save that group. But that's like a knowledge that you have. Like, it's just memorized deeply. It's you know the theory behind it, you know why it's like that, and it's like there's no way you're gonna miss that because you know it. The next level of it, though, would be kind of like problems that you haven't really seen before, but maybe you have seen it before, but not often enough that you've studied it and you know the answer, but you kind of remember, right? It's kind of like when you're taking a test and it's like a multiple choice test, and you read the question and you never would have been able to answer it without the multiple choice. But when you look at the multiple choice answers, you kind of look like, oh, wait, C kind of looks right for some reason. I kind of remember that. And then you mark C and you get it right. That's kind of like the next level of knowledge. Like, you haven't formally studied it, but you've seen it before. It's familiar. And then finally, it's the last one where it's like, it's just completely foreign to you. You don't know how to do it. and you can maybe use your brute force to read through that and figure it out during the game if that's the kind of game you're playing, but very difficult. What I noticed was my life and death intuition kind of improved over time throughout the plateau. Another intuition that I feel that I've improved is Tanuki, the Tanuki intuition. I think I have gotten bolder and more confident in my Tanuki over the course of the past 2 years. When I look at these games, I notice that I respond to certain things that I don't know if that I would completely say that it's wrong to respond at this point, but my mind right now looking at it is going like, I want a Tanuki from that. I want to do something else. I don't want to like respond to that. And I've detached myself from following. And I think that maybe back then I also had this feeling too of I kind of think I should Tanuki, but I was scared. I have this problem of feeling like leaving things locally is leaving things dangerous and unsettled and at a disadvantage. But there's flaws in that thinking, which is that you're trying to win the whole game on the board rather than locally. And so I think I've built up a little more courage over time to Tanuki and really objectively look at the situation and form more opinions about whether I can Tanuki or not. And I think that's a pretty key thing to work on, and I want to continue working on that as well. And finally, my attack sense has gotten better. I've noticed a couple times when I've been trying to kill groups and I didn't agree with where to put the stone to attack that group. And so having all of these experiences, I mean, you need to play more games in order to face all these, right? You're gonna maybe play several games where you never have to attack a group. Like maybe you'll pressure a group a little bit, but maybe the situation where you're trying to actually actively kill a group, I mean, it could be debatable, but there will be times when you need to be severe. And those situations may not always come up. And these life and death situations may not always come up. The Tanuki situations may not always come up. But over time, over many, many games, they start to bubble up and you get more and more experience with all these things. And that can only be possible if you play enough games. A lot of games I practiced local positions. I noticed that in the games that I played, that I was also practicing local positions, even though they may not be the best thing to play at the time. I was putting in purposeful practice. For example, the large knight's enclosure invasion. So I learned how to invade a large knight's enclosure and lived on the inside. That's not always the right move. And actually, oftentimes, it's not the right move. It's just very difficult to get into a position where you've played out the whole game and there is a large knight's move enclosure somewhere and you can still invade it. And then you can get some more points after that. Influence that your opponent would get has already been nullified, so it makes sense to do it. To get to that point in a game, it's actually pretty hard because things happen in the game. The knight's move enclosure gets approached, something happens, they make another move there, or if you wait too long, it just doesn't work. And so I think I noticed myself whenever I saw a knight's move enclosure, I would try to invade it just to get practice with it, just so I can know how to do it. And that might have lost me some games. I don't know, but there were certain things that I've practiced and studied that I wanted to get practice for. And, Fox is a great place to do that. So that's kind of what I gleaned off of looking at my past games. Some of the more recent developments that I feel that I have been trying to work on and put into my play that might have contributed to the recent rank up. And again, like I've ranked up, but you know how long I spent at 1 Dan and 1 Q now, and I went up and down, so this may be my new up and down with 1 Dan and 2 Dan, but still, I'm celebrating this milestone. But recently, I've been trying to find a balance with aggression, and it's been hard because I think I've noticed how aggro I am in my play, and I've tried to ease off the aggro and try to be more peaceful. And I found that I was in more control of the game, and I kind of knew better what to expect of the game. And I felt like I can understand the game more, but I was still losing because I didn't have enough points. And I think I'm trying to find this balance where, yes, ease off the aggro that is senseless, right? Senseless aggression is not very good. Don't just have aggression just for the sake of it, but patiently wait and find the right moment to sting and attack. And I think that has been the key, is like when I play, I default to not attacking, not being the aggressor, until I see something very interesting and I choose the battle that I want to pick. And I think that's been working a little better for me, and being more methodical and opportunistic, and looking at the attack as like, okay, does this attack serve my goals? Another recent development that I've been putting into practice, I've already mentioned, my metal turtle that I hold on to. I think that's actually been pretty good for me. As much as I try to tell myself I'm going to use the time and think, it's hard to keep that in practice. You get lazy over time. And the fact that I have this turtle with me and that I want to make sure I hold on to it before every move, it's really helped me ground myself in that practice and that discipline. And overall, I think I've been trying more and more to shift my thinking to a more abstract thinking. In other words, if I was thinking before, I want to do this, or how do I do this, right? In terms of when I'm playing the game and there are certain goals I want to achieve, I'm asking that less, or maybe not less, but before I ask those questions, I ask myself, do I want to do this? Or when I ask myself, can I do this? I ask myself before that, even if I can do this, should I do this? Or just, why am I doing this? And going backwards and thinking about the reasons for everything I'm doing. Because that leads to the ultimate question, the big question. What do I need to do in order to win? Or if I'm really behind, what do I need to do in order to have any chance at all of winning? But that's the big question, and it seems so obvious. What do we need to do to win? That's what you should be thinking during the game, right? That's the whole point, right? You need to figure out how to win the game. But the reason why it's so hard to think of that question and really ask it meaningfully is because when you start a game of Go, you can't ask that question right away. You can't just say, what do I need to do to win? That's like a baby, like born into the world. And you ask the baby, you put a microphone in front of it and say, what do you need to do to be successful in life? Right? It's just like, I'm a baby. Let me figure out how to crawl first, okay? And that's what the opening is like. You have this giant board with nothing on it. You can't really ask yourself, what do I need to do to win? Nothing's happened yet. And then so what do? You play by principles. Like, okay, you need to play in the corners. You need to play by intuition. You need to play extensions, keep your groups alive, shape moves, etc., survive, kill, escape, trap things. And soon enough, you'll find that you're playing all these moves based on these principles that you've learned and these heuristics that you have in your head. And then the game is over and you've lost. Like, what happened? The game, over time, over the course of many moves, slowly crystallizes enough to a point where you are able to ask that question, what do I need to do to win? And it's not the beginning of the game, and it's not at the end of the game. It's somewhere in the middle, things start developing, things start to happen, and you are suddenly in a situation. You are in a middle game. And by then, if you're so wrapped up in the middle game and you're so wrapped up in trying to do things on the board, you may not ever ask yourself, what do I need to do to win? You may just be so focused on the goal at hand, but you need to back off at that point and say, what do I need to do to win at this point? Because I found that when I play Go, a lot of the times I will ask myself, what do I need to do to win before it's too late? I will have put myself in a sticky situation and I'm like, oh no, I screwed up. This is not enough to win. What do I need to do to win? And I'm like, well, what I should have done to win is not do that. And maybe I should have thought about not doing this because now it's very difficult to win. So asking yourself this question earlier could maybe possibly help prevent future problems. But the key is it's difficult to know when to ask yourself this question because you're just so wrapped up in playing the game that it just suddenly turns into a thing and you forget that that's what you're trying to do. And that's the big question that you need to ask yourself. And you may try to ask yourself at one point in the game, like, what do I need to do in the game to win? And you figure out a strategy like, okay, I need to grow this area. I need to make this framework bigger. I need to attack this group and pressure this group so that it leans onto that group and blah, blah, blah. And that's what your strategy is. Like, I think that is a solid plan to win. And then 5 moves later, that plan is just completely garbage, right? Like things didn't work out the way expected. Or more moves have been played and now it's vague again. There's not much information to go off of. Things have been decrystallized almost. Things have gone back into being nebulous and you don't know what's going on anymore. And maybe things are a little even, but also unpredictable. And so you need to play more moves based on what you think your principles are. And then eventually it crystallizes again and you need to be aware and alert and conscious or self-aware enough to ask that question again. What do I need to do to win? And once you get to that point where you can ask yourself that question, and I assure you it's not easy to ask yourself this question very much during the game because you're so focused on the game. But if you are able to ask yourself this question, you must harness all of the powers of judgment, critical thinking, risk assessment, and even psychology in order to evaluate what you need to do to win. And there are many possible conditions for this. You may need to kill a group to win. Like there's no other way to win but to kill the group. If that group lives, then you lose, basically. Or it could be a situation where you could kill a group and that would definitely have you win. Or you could let it free, but it's a very risky struggle for points. But at least be aware of that dichotomy or that decision that you have to make. If you're blindly chasing that group and you've forgotten the whole thing about winning, then you may have lost an opportunity to step back and say, hey, you know what? It's risky to let it live because I don't know if all the points that I can get are enough, but I think it's better than the risk I have to take chasing this dragon down. So having that moment of clarity and judgment will definitely add to your victory rate, I think. Another example might be if you screw up real bad, and you're just completely like AI is saying like, oh, there's no chance for you to win. Maybe the win condition at that point is I have to wait for my opponent to make a mistake to win. And that is still a valid strategy. That's not like the most go thinking strategy. It's really like a psychological strategy almost, but sometimes that's the way I've won. I've made a really bad mistake, kind of fallen into traps that my opponent set up or been overconfident. Maybe I was just kind of off my game, but I've noticed, oh, my opponent is playing strange moves. My opponent's playing moves that have vulnerabilities. And if I keep playing, there's a very good chance that my opponent will play something like that in the future. And there's a lot of moves left in the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play very good, solid Go until my opponent makes that mistake and take advantage of it. And that is a valid way to evaluate what you need to do to win. If you give a pro that game before any more moves are played, and you ask them, what do you need to do in order to win? They're going to give a very different answer. They're going to be like, no, I just need to resign. Because they're thinking, I'm against a pro, and pros just won't make a mistake like that. But so it's very different based on each situation and each pairing and each person. Another situation might be, I need to edge out 5 more points in the endgame to win. Like, I'm losing by like 5 points, and it's almost endgame time. If I can get 5 more points of an advantage in the endgame, I will win. Then you start working, your brain starts working like, okay, how do I get endgame points? How do I do this? How do I do that? Instead of this vague strategy of, oh, I should always get optimal points. I should always get optimal endgame moves in and blah, blah, blah. That is not a very goalful way to put it. Without the goal, it's a lot harder, I think. And having that solid goal and solid analysis of what you need to do to win, I think is a huge advantage. And it's very, very important. So I think getting that goal in your head, whatever the goal is, whatever you figured out, like, oh, this is my theory on how to win this game, I think it really helps you prioritize your objectives, because Go is such a complex game. It has so many things going on. You want to do so many things. You want to take big points. You want to attack groups and pressure groups. You want to save your groups. You want to make sure you have enough points. You want to make sure your groups are safe. And so there are so many things going on, and you have to prioritize so many different things. And having this goal can really help organize those objectives. And you can say something like, I can't try to kill this group right now because in case I fail, because if I fail right now, that'll be devastating to me. But if I play these points here, and then I play more and then nullify more of the area of influence and then try to kill that group, then it'll be less harmful to me. And being able to make those judgments is a big part of Go. And I think that's the next level that I want to try to reach. I think it's easy to get discouraged when you're in a plateau sometimes. I know I got discouraged anytime I would derank back to 1Q, or I played in the Dawn level and then I lost my first game there. But I think you have to really just buff those out with more experience. And I haven't played my first 2 Dawn Fox game yet, but whether I win or lose, I need to be able to handle that and just keep going. And if I derank back to 1 Dawn, I need to be able to handle that and keep going. Because it's, rank is a nice way to measure your achievements, but it's really not the important thing. The important thing is appreciating and improving and loving Go and having fun with Go. And Go is beautiful, and that's why we're here. But now it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is, don't resign. Last week I told you to resign and not waste time on playing lost games, but now I'm telling you don't resign. Resigning, I think, is kind of a skill. You need to know when it is a truly good resignation. If you're doubting that, then you really shouldn't be resigning, because anything can happen. The weaker you are, the more likely it is that you shouldn't resign, with exceptions, of course. But hone your resign sense and opt to not resign more than resign, right? If you're in doubt, don't resign. If you feel like your spirit is broken and you've evaluated that there's no way to get back from this game, then you can resign. But that is, again, that's a skill and another sense, intuition sense that you need to build in order to be able to resign properly and in the right situation. But now it's time for listener mail. All right, so last week I had a bunch of answers from Eric, who gave answers to the episode Questions for Dawn Players, episode 87. You can listen to the bulk of the other Dawn Player answers in episode 89, but I went through half of it last week, and now I will go through the next half. So Eric, continuing on. What was your last paradigm shift in your Go understanding, and do you recall the one that sent you over to the Dawn level? I think over the past year, I've been doing more pro-game analysis and learning a lot of modern concepts, and I think that's resulted in a big change in how I judge moves and positions. But I think the last thing that really resonated with me is something that sounds a bit silly. Ooh, I'm excited. I wanted to work on my chess calculation last year, so I picked up a copy of a book that is very widely recommended in chess circles, Grandmaster Preparation Calculation by Jacob Agard. There's 4 A's in that name. As I read through the preface, the book outlined a bunch of calculation techniques, some of which I was familiar with, and has quite a few gems like improvement starts at the end of your comfort zone, or calculation is only a tool to aid in the decision-making process. But what stuck out to me was the following. Let us go through the core idea of each calculation technique quickly, remembering that the most important aspects of calculation are concentration and determination. They are the motor and the fuel. The techniques are merely the GPS. Okay, that sounds very interesting already. So, a couple comments here. I think that if you play chess, or if you play Go, when you switch to the other game, you definitely have a leg up on the competition, because I have noticed, like, I play very casually chess. Like, chess, I don't take very seriously, but I do play a little bit, like, for fun. But I noticed that, like, my skills in Go translate over to chess in the realm of calculation. That is the big similarity between the two. To be able to predict things happening. Of course, it's a little trickier sometimes going from one to the other. There's definitely differences, to be sure. But I feel like it does give you a little bit of an amped, like, boost in the other game. And I like these quotes here that you gave. Improvement starts at the end of your comfort zone, which is, oh man, that applies to so many things. And calculation only being a tool in the decision-making process kind of echoes a lot of the stuff I've been saying about the big question today in how to win a game. So I'm curious. And then the concentration and determination comment, that's something I've also been thinking about recently. Like, you have to really be good at concentrating. And that's another discipline and skill that helps you win and play good Go. Continuing, I suddenly realized that internally, as I had surrounded myself with stronger players earlier in my life, a lot of times when I went to calculate something, I would sort of go through the motions in my head, finish reading a variation, and come to an often premature conclusion. It wasn't as though I was incapable of calculating further. There just felt like something in my head that said, this is good enough, I can stop here. Well, hold on, I want to stop reading there because I very, very, very much relate to this. And especially in a live game, I feel like there's something in my head that's like, all right, read a little bit, but oh no, that's too much reading. You need to stop right now because there's not enough time to read right now. You shouldn't be reading anymore. I don't know why, it's just there. Continuing. I feel that it's somewhat related to the learned helplessness you talked about in a previous episode, but I have a feeling that when you're around people significantly stronger than you are, it can sometimes negatively affect you in ways like this. I had a game shortly after reading a few chapters of this book where I was taking 3 stones against a stronger player and managed to win. And in that game, I was actively trying to push the limits of what I could calculate. I could somewhat feel the part of me that was telling me that I had enough information to conclude and make a move, and I mentally forced myself to concentrate and was determined to give the decision a deeper and more precise look. Definitely an eye-opener. Yeah, that's tricky though, depending on the time setting. I think that is a big anxiety of playing with certain time settings. It's like, on top of all the stuff you have to decide for Go, you also have to decide when it is worth using time to think and analyze situations. So that's tricky. I'm curious, is this book very chess heavy, or is it abstract enough that you would recommend it to Go players? Continuing, to get to the Dawn level, I was reading through 501 Tsuji problems and finished my first read through, but I felt that I hadn't absorbed the contents of the book properly, so I reread it, keeping score of how many I got wrong. My goal was to get at least 90% of the problems correct, which means I had to do better than 1 problem wrong per page, which usually contains 9 problems. I eventually finished the book in 1 sitting. Oh my goodness. You finished 501 Tsuji problems in one sitting? Having scored higher than 95%, not realizing that I had unwittingly done the woodpecker method. Having internalized this book, it pushed me over the edge from 2Q to 1 Dan AGA. Wow, that's very convincing. 501 Tsuji problems. Oh man, I'm scared though. I feel like I get so stuck on some problems. As much as I like doing problems, I get discouraged sometimes because I feel like I take very long sometimes. Maybe that's why I'm like, should I do time problems? Next question. Was a study habit change a significant factor in any of your breakthroughs in Go? I think almost all of my breakthroughs came from studying. Whether it was a change in habit, I'm not sure. But I think it's very important for us adults, especially with how little time we have, to make sure that the studying we're doing is effective. I think it's very easy to go through the motions of study and not actually come away from it any stronger. As you mentioned in a previous podcast, improvement is often holistic. It is oftentimes an aggregation of marginal gains across multiple areas, but it's very easy to make yourself believe you're studying something and not actually absorbing the information or changing the way you play because of the things you're learning. Yeah, I very much agree, and that's why I feel like I think I gave books a bit of a bad rap in the books episode that I did, because if you just read the book, that often doesn't lead to a whole lot of strength gains. And I think I've over time learned a little more about how to study from books and from actually anything at all. And you really have to nail in the concept and make sure that you're understanding it instead of just consuming it one time and then leaving it like, oh, okay, now I know. It's not like a fiction book where you just want to follow the story from the beginning to the end and then you're entertained. It is a study, right? When you take a class in school, you don't just read the textbook one time, although many people don't even read the textbook, but that's beside the point. What you do before the exam is you study. You make sure you know it. You go back and review. What did you not understand? What did you understand? And you take notes and you try to work out what you're missing so that you can actually understand what you're being taught. And that's the same thing when you're studying Go. You can't just read it once through, especially if there are concepts in there that you don't understand. So I think you're definitely hitting the nail on the head there. Let me see. I think it's imperative that no matter what you're studying in Go, to come up with a method to ensure that you're learning something. If you're learning Joseki from videos, give it a day or two and play the sequences out on a blank board. Make sure you understand the meaning of some of the key moves. If you're doing Sumego, what's the purpose? Are you doing easy Sumego to improve your speed and confidence with instant pattern recognition? Maybe do a few lower level Guan and note your speed. Are you doing hard Sumego to practice deep reading? Try setting a timer and recording your average time/accuracy for groups of 10, like your 101 Weiqi homework problems. I think it's important to have some kind of measurable, objectively verifiable way to show that you got something out of the study. I think a lot of people study and just think, okay, I spent the time, watched the video, I get it, that's enough. And then they don't get any marginal gain out of it, so after a long period of time elapses, they don't see any gains, and suddenly studying becomes less and less desirable because it didn't work for them. Yeah, totally. And I think the thing is that that's what rank is kind of for, because you're mentioning objective measurements of what you've done. And I think rank is a somewhat objective way to measure your progress, but it shouldn't be the only objective way. And if you're only focusing on the rank, then everything else you do may not be objectively working for you. And if you're not measuring those things, then it's hard to know. And I think that's a very good point, because we need to be able to measure our improvement. And so anything that we can do to put like an outside lens on what we're doing, like a timer, right? Can you do it in a certain amount of time? Or can you get a certain accuracy? Or can you have it memorized not just today, but tomorrow and next month? I think those things are very key as well. So I think that's my approach to the whole like studying thing has always just kind of mimicked what I do for music. I know that when I play music and I try to practice something, the first day it's a struggle, and then the next day that I practice it, I haven't practiced since the last time that I played it to this time that I'm trying, but something happens between that time where I improve, and that second repetition really gets me going. And then the third one is even building more upon that. And so based on that theory, I feel like you can't just study one day, but multiple days. And through the multiple days, you're able to evaluate your improvement better, I think. What was your longest plateau in Go, and what got you out of it? I don't know if this qualifies as a plateau, but I've gone from 3 Dan to 4 Dan to 5 Dan to 4 Dan to 3 Dan in my AGA rating, and I haven't played in an AGA-rated tournament since, despite becoming, at least to me, noticeably stronger. I managed to win the 3 Dan section of the last AGA tournament I entered, the Baltimore Open, but I don't know if that makes me any stronger than my listed AGA rank of 3 Dan. I would like to enter open sections if I re-enter AGA events because I personally am not a huge fan of handicap tournament games. I guess that just means I have to get to that level first. Oh, okay, so you're... I wonder how strong your... I actually don't know how strong most of the handicap sections go up to. I guess you need to be probably like 5 Dan or above, is my guess. Probably. I'm trying to remember what it was during the tournaments that I just remember going like, no, that's not me. I'm not that strong. But I think that whole like up and down sporadic 3 Dan, 4 Dan, 5 Dan thing, which actually at that level, I don't know how common it is, because isn't the difference between Dan levels at that level like really, really big at that point? I don't know. But it kind of tracks with me because I don't know, there's so many variables, like different people showing up at the tournament, different ranks, and like different moods and different like amounts of experience and different life situations. It can fluctuate a lot, I feel like. I try not to think too much about the number. Competing at a variety of different activities has made me believe that you're not really in total control over your personal condition, your opponent's condition, and you're like saying all the stuff that I was saying, your opponent's condition, and how things will play out over the board. So all you can do is your best in the moment. Away from the board is where most of the gains happen, and playing online is enjoyable and good practice as long as wherever you play isn't inundated with cheaters. I hear that. Eric says away from the board is where most of the game happens. Most of the gains happen. So that's what this show is. It's a show for Go fans away from the board. You remember? Remember how I said that every time since episode 1? Yeah. So and it also kind of relates to the whole thing where I talked about practicing one day, and then for some reason the next day it's easier because something happened between the two times. The cheater problem, that's another topic entirely, but I don't think I've faced any cheaters, but probably different at your level. I found that as long as I enjoy playing and studying Go, I will probably plateau at whatever strength I'm supposed to be at. So I try not to worry about it. Kind of like how companies destroy their long-term potential by worrying about year-to-year short-term progress. I feel that maybe short-term growth isn't really what you should care about. Oh, I feel like I have a lot to say about this topic. I've been almost meaning to make an episode, if I have enough content for it, about this whole concept of like water will reach its level kind of thing, and the balance between that approach and the I must get better and I must improve approach, because I think I've mentioned this also a long time ago, but there are those two approaches, and I think Go players quickly realize that whole like I need to be better and like win every game approach just doesn't work. And they end up settling into what you've described here and finding out what strength you're supposed to be at. But there might be more to that. There might be more. You need to add a little more spice to that and not just be so passive, because sometimes it's the belief that you're not supposed to be at the rank that causes you to grow into the next rank. I don't know. What advice would you give to your DDK double-digit Q self, and what advice would you give to your SDK single-digit Q self? To my DDK self, stop reading the Lasker book. I know you think Life and Death is fun, and you can torrent a copy of PDF Go books, so find the Chochikun's Life and Death Encyclopedia Elementary and read that. I didn't even know Lasker wrote a Go book. Yeah, sometimes we got fixated on certain study methods. To my SDK self, when you question an authority figure and they tell you something positional that you don't understand, don't worry about it. All of that is going to become completely obsolete in about a decade. Read lessons in the fundamentals, the James Davies Tsuji, then attack and defense books, and finish 501 Tsuji problems, and you'll break through. Remember that the Chinese Go problem book Mingju gave you isn't for your level, but you should still sit down and give it a try. Don't get discouraged and just take it one problem at a time. You know what I like about your answers? You didn't just give advice to yourself that everybody else could follow, but you specifically talked to yourself about exactly what problems that you were facing. So I like that bit of personality in there. And I'm going to have to give this 501 Tsuji problems a try, because you literally said it took you from 2Q to 1 Dan, and that's like where I want to go right now. So it might be the best thing for me. And it's like the only book that I don't have in this little list of books that you just mentioned. I'm still working through Tsuji by James Davies. That one's... I'm very stubborn. When I get stuck on a problem, I just like try to power through it, and then if I can't get it, I put the book down for a long period of time, and then I go back to it later. Alrighty, wanted to sit down and give some longer answers to this stuff, but I think I've done enough yapping. Hopefully some of this resonates with you and gives you the answers you're looking for. Well, thank you so much for writing in again, Eric. Your answers or your mail is always very thoughtful and well put, and you can tell, I think, by my reactions that it definitely resonated with me a lot. So thank you again. Vexel writes, "Hi Justin, I've been a longtime listener and I love the podcast. I finally decided that I have something I want to share." Well, very, very big thanks for listening, and thank you for loving the podcast. It's just a pet project of mine, and it's always good to hear people appreciating it. And you don't have to have anything big to share. I'd love for you to share anything Go related, so anything that comes up in your head. Don't be afraid to write in. But here's what you've shared today. There is a scene in the match near the end after Cho Eun-yeon is finally making a strong return and is going head-to-head with Lee Chang-ho. Oops, spoiler alert, I forgot to say. The scene shows a couple of commentators broadcasting their game on a magnetic board to TV. One of the commentators says, "It takes two to play Go. A single genius cannot create a good game of Go on his own." When I heard this, I was immediately reminded of a scene in Hikaru no Go where Kuwabara 9P, the creepy old guy, said something very similar. I can't remember the exact quote, but he says something along the lines of, "Go takes two people to play. Therefore, to play the divine move requires two geniuses." You know what? I thought the exact same quote. I remember that quote, and that's one of my favorite quotes in the show. And a little fun backstory about the creepy old guy. The author, Yumi Hota, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but the author of Hikaru no Go, and I'm blanking on the artist's name, but she would like sketch characters in her head, but she's not an illustrator. And her artist would just look at the character and look at what the character is supposed to be and create what the character is supposed to look like. But in this situation, the artist decided, "Oh, I'm going to be very faithful to what you've drawn here," and put his hair exactly like that and draw his face exactly like that. And that's why he ended up looking like that. So that's a little funny. I learned that from one of the mangas. Like, she has little side notes in the mangas. But yeah, I totally thought of that quote as well. I'm not sure if this was an intentional callback to Hikaru no Go by the match writers, but I found this parallel to be neat. Maybe it's a common sentiment to describe a great match in any game or sport. I wonder if anyone else noticed this detail. Thanks for the great Go content, Vexel. Well, thank you so much for writing in. I very much appreciate it. And of course, I'm sure somebody else noticed the detail if 2 of us have already noticed it. And I really believe in that statement. That's why it's such a cool thing, is that other things like, I mean, I guess you can consider inspiration for artists very important. Like you have to stand on the shoulders of giants, to put it in Isaac Newton's terms. But in Go, you really can't just be a genius on your own. You have to find somebody else who matches your energy, and then you forge together the genius and beauty of a match. And that's what is so cool. Devin Phrase writes, thanks for the mention. We are making some good progress not only the visuals to display during the game, but building the story around the players prior to the game to create buy-in and interest as well. Looking forward to the next pro qualifications where hopefully we'll have some cool stuff to show off. Thanks for writing in, Devin. And of course, if you guys listened to last week's episode, we talked a lot about Baduk Club, which is Devin Phrase's project, and how much it's really helping grow the Go community. And that's actually not the episode that Devin commented on. He commented on the one before that, and I mentioned him in that episode as well. I'm trying to remember why. Oh yeah. Well, what he just talked about here, the displays. Like he's working on like making sure the display of the Go board while watching games is entertaining. I'm really looking forward to anything new in that realm. So anyway, thanks for writing in, and of course, always appreciated, Devin. Uzair name writes, one thing that confuses me as a beginner is the incentive to pass in Chinese rules. In Japanese rules, it's in your best interest to pass once you can't make more points. But in Chinese or AGA rules, what is stopping you from continuing to invade and secure your territory until you have no choice but to fill in your eyes? Maybe it's because it wastes both players' time, but that is not a game theoretical explanation. I also noticed that Katago tends to keep playing seemingly unnecessary moves even when I would pass. I like that question a lot. And my immediate answer here, though, is that yes, technically in Chinese and AGA rules, you can keep going. And obviously the common sense and human answer is, yeah, you don't want to waste time and it's pointless and everybody knows it won't live, or everybody knows it's not going to work, so that's why you wouldn't. And you're asking like, okay, that's not a game theoretical answer. And so in game theory, there's no reason you wouldn't pass, right? You would just play even if there's like a 0.00000000001% chance of something happening. But I would also ask, like, there's not always a reason. There's not even a 0.0001% chance of anything happening. Sometimes it actually can't happen. Like nothing can actually happen. And so there would not be an incentive to play a move or pass. Like you can do either or, and then it defaults back to the human choice of, oh, I'm going to pass because the game is over. And I think that's the thing, is like Go is not just a logical construction. It is a human game. It is a game played by human beings, and we have to remember that, because if we forget that, then we start to get a little bit too rulesy and we get too into the weeds about what Go is in terms of just the rules, and that's kind of sucking the life out of the game. But I will say that for that reason, I do kind of like the Japanese rules. Like at a certain point, you don't want to play more moves, and in Chinese rules, it's like you just. I mean, I think that's the thing. The Chinese rules are older, I assume, than the Japanese rules, and they came from the original form of Go, which I assume involved playing as many stones as you can on the board until you just count the stones on the board rather than the territory, or the stones plus the territory. It was just like you fill the board with stones except for your eyes, and then that's the game, and you count the stones. I think that's like a historical reason. But it's a interesting question. I feel like it's opening more questions. So thanks for writing in. Filming writes, I'm actually surprised that you and the guy from the mail feels the same pressure on OGS. I definitely feel more relaxed on Fox and other servers. I don't know, maybe because I treat PGS as my main server or something, but it does feel more serious for some reason. Glad I'm not the only one. Means I'm not crazy, lol. Yeah, I wonder if more people, seems like we're not the only ones, but I feel like on OGS, I do feel that pressure. I definitely do. So, I want to hear from you if you do feel the pressure on OGS, and I also want to hear from you if you don't know what we're talking about, because I want to hear both sides. Thanks for writing in. Sadaharu writes, if I'm not wrong, the recent 20 games system is inherited from Taigen, which was inherited from Tom Wei-Chi, which is probably not available or not popular now. What the heck is Tom Wei-Chi? Never heard of that. I never really liked it because of the part where you mentioned how the earlier win streaks are gone and you just get more crosses if you lose, lol. There's also a luck element to it because if you keep playing a weaker player, you'll advance faster. I think rating systems like OGS make more sense. You know what? You're probably right. OGS is definitely objectively, if you're looking at accuracy for ratings, it's better. It is better. I will admit that. But I just think the system in Fox is more fun, and I just like it. Provoke writes, in Chinese rules, the score doesn't always add up to 361 when there is a single point seki. I didn't consider that, so I'm wondering what Fox does in those situations. I wonder what Fox does. What does it show? It's a good thing to notice. Oh, and there is, I usually don't read old listener mails from old episodes, but fellow named Angry Reindeer has been making the run through the episodes, making some comments. I thought I'd read a couple here. Hi, Justin. I love the podcast and have been catching up, as can be gleaned from my trail of comments. I am a research scientist, and playing Go has been a remarkably similar experience to doing new experiments. Sometimes I mess things up and don't immediately know why. A long process of troubleshooting and trial and error is necessary to understand the issues. Then, looking back, the same things seem easy. Yes, I love it. I love that approach. It is like a science experiment. But I think one thing about it is I think it's kind of a similar thing in the science realm where you don't want to it's very important to choose correctly what you want to research. You don't have unlimited time, you don't have unlimited resources, so it's important to really think about your hypothesis and test that. So likewise in Go, if you just spend your whole time experimenting on everything and just trying new things, you may not have enough ground to improve. But I like that comparison. Another thing that you've written here, Angry Reindeer says, I am working my way through the episodes. Great work. Have you considered having a Discord channel for your community of listeners? It would be a great place to get game reviews and find people to play with. I have considered a Discord community, and I've been working on one. I've never run a Discord community before, so I'm feeling a little bit like this may be a fail, but I will actually link a Discord for Starpoint listeners to join. So I'm going to be opening up the Discord. I will provide the link to the Discord in the description, so come in and say hello. Don't be shy and connect with other Starpoint listeners. The question of the week this week is, have you ranked up recently? If you have, what did you do to get to your particular rank? What kind of things did you do? If you haven't ranked up in a while, what have you been trying and what has not worked for you? What do you think is not working for you? So if you want to share your thoughts on that question, or if you have a Go story to share or have a question of your own you want to ask me, leave a comment wherever you found this episode or email me at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very special thank you to James B., Tristan, and Jeff H. for supporting Starpoint. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to kofi.com/starpointpaduk. That's ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk. Or peruse the Starpoint store at store.starpointpaduk.com. So there's this saying in carpentry or woodwork that's measure twice, cut once. It's a very good saying to follow so that you don't cut a piece of wood and you screw up and you waste material and you have to go back and start again, or you might even have to start the whole project over again. But Go players don't make such good carpenters because they cut first and think later. Actually, a lot of players cut many times and don't think at all. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.